with solid minds, no tales of the strange. In Sasquatch Secrets, they'll begin to rearrange. Truth's the vibe, we're on a quest. Look beyond the trees, what do you see? Factual stories redefining history. No myths, no magic, let's break the mold. With every word spoken, the wonders unfold. Footprints in the snow, not just a myth. Data and research will sift through the pit. Tales of a creature, but science leads the way. Nikki's quest for knowledge, come join and stay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Secrets. I'm your host, Nikki Colon. Glad you guys could make it. So glad. Looks like we got a lot of people joining us. Yay. Let me see real fast. Gary Johnson, Rabbit, Henry. Good to see you, Henry. Sharon always leaves me a message. First one all the time. Have a good show. I appreciate that. I really do. Sharon, we're going to have to talk. We haven't talked in a long time or messaged. So we're going to have to catch up, see how your kids are doing and stuff. Who else do we have? We've got Valor Motorsports. Well, welcome. That's a new name I have not heard of before. You're absolutely welcome here. Sandra Piper, Angel Nolan, Just Steve, Batmom's listening in. She's working hard as always. Robert Dunduvan. Good to see everybody. If I missed you, you know I love you. Thank you for being here and supporting me in the channel. And let's bring on my guest.
A wizard, what do you see as you twist the tiles?
Hey.
Jonathan in the house tonight, guys. We might have a few other people pop in here and there, so we might let them in. Yeah, we might. We'll see. How are you today, Jonathan?
I'm doing all right. Well, how about yourself?
Good. I've been like so busy this last couple of weeks, and especially this last week, as many of you know, I'm going back to work. So I have been doing all that online pre-onboarding stuff and including certifications and stuff to get back to work at the hospital.
Yeah, that's got to be a lot of work.
So I'm like, I gotta do that. I have to go get, I even had to go get the flu shot and all kinds of stuff before I can start working. And so hopefully tomorrow they'll let me know about my schedule and we'll see about the show. If I have to rearrange show times, that might happen. But I think you guys will find me, and I appreciate you guys watching me whenever you can. So
smooth out just fine.
Yeah, we'll make it work. I worked before that, so we'll see what happens. But let me rearrange us. I'm gonna put us. We'll start out like this, and if we get some more participants, it's Sunday, so a lot of people are out enjoying the cooler weather and getting out there. Brent out in the woods. Even Pat was making some content today. So good on him, and hopefully they do. And even Trackway, who has been out for the last 4 days. I think he's been out for 4 days.
I think it was 5, if I remember correctly, when he had said, I'm going back out for 5 days. Maybe it was,
but 4. He's on his way back in, so maybe he'll drop in, maybe Brent will, maybe Pat will, Jeff Fro may even drop in. So nice. They're all welcome. Everybody knows that they can drop in. So tonight's topic is Bigfoot in a box. And if a lot of you were thinking that it was in regards to Daisy in a box, which was something that happened many years ago, early 2000s. What year was that? Too bad Brent's not here. He probably knew more about it. But that was back when they supposedly had caught a Bigfoot, and they caught it in a large trap, kind of like a big clam trap type of deal. And it involved, I believe that was Ed Smith, if I'm not Henry's in the thing. Was that Ed Smith, Henry? That that whole Daisy in a box capture, that was their code name, because it was supposedly like this elite group of Bigfoot investigators with what was the name of that?
They caught him in a giant Venus flytrap.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, Ed Smith and
Jesus. I've never even heard of it.
MABRC kind of got involved, and oh shoot, I think even Melissa Hovey, for some reason, I want to say she was involved in that. But they were this elitist group of Bigfoot hunters. No pictures, no nothing. They just strewed along, that they had caught this Bigfoot, and that went on for 2012. Could be Bat Mom. I was gonna say 2009 at Quantra. Yes, the Quantra team.
Quantra team.
And that was so crazy. That's not what this is about. So if you thought that's what I was going to talk about tonight,
that aside.
Yeah, that might be a future show, but I just have little bits and pieces of that, and I don't think it ever went anywhere. It was just another hoax that never really came out or anything. So hey Jay,
never even heard of it before.
Yeah, there's still a lot of stuff out there some people don't know about. Quantra, that's what I wanted to say something else, so good thing I didn't say that. There's Jennifer's in the house.
She's actually speaking about something that she had posted. It's excellent.
Lazy Cowboy. I had on my show, well, not on my show, I had in my Be on the Lookout, and actually I posted it again. His video is out, guys. His recreating the Bluff Creek is out. So I hope you guys all have gotten to see that or are going to see it. I've dropped the link down in my description. So if you'd like to go watch that, it's amazing.
It is amazing. The work he did. Talent.
I've asked him to come on to the show, and we're going to try to work something out. He's in the UK, so times are a little bit different for him, so we're trying to work out when he would be able to come on, because I would have to literally change my show time so that he's not at 1:00 in the morning over there.
Right. Would love to know what he does for a living. Yeah, I would imagine it's got to be something along that.
I don't know much about, him and his, his life or anything like that. Right. Just that he's very talented at this type of work. So it would be interesting to see what he has. So don't forget, if you have a question, please put it all in caps so that I can see it. I know you're not yelling at me, so just go ahead. Put that on there. But let's go right along. So today, my Bigfoot in the box stemmed from last night. The last 2 nights, Finding the Trackway, Bill has been having some lives because he's been out there in the woods, and we were keeping him all company. And he made okay, hold on. Somebody is popping in, so let's bring him on. If I can, here we go. And it's Jeffro. What are you doing?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good.
How you doing?
I'm trying to be. Hey, Jonathan, how are you?
Doing all right.
trying to stay out of trouble.
Any record-breaking big game getting taken down out there, Jeff?
Well, I'm done mountain guiding for the big game. I'm just guiding upland bird hunters now for pheasants, and probably start guiding some goose hunters here in a couple weeks when it gets cold. But today's out-of-state opening pheasant weekend here in South Dakota, so it's about 100,000 hunters in the state that normally aren't here.
That's crazy.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It's a millions of dollars for our economy in 1 week here for this. We're the pheasant hunting capital of the world. So, and it's crazy how much people will spend to hunt. I've got over the weekend here, I spent some time with a relative of mine guiding 20 hunters that are a group from Las Vegas that are all casino owners and operators. And they're spending like $5,000 a piece for a 5-day hunt. And they bring their $15,000 shotguns and their $25,000 hunting dogs that don't behave for shit. These dogs are supposed to be so well trained, and they don't know how to work with each other. But Jesus. And then every night after you're done hunting, they go and buy drinks and stay. Each one of them drops about $1,000 out at the steakhouse, and these guys just live for that. And I'm just, it's hard for me to get my mind in that space. You know, I mean, these guys wipe their butts with $1,000 bill. You know, it's nothing to them.
Yeah, that's big money. They stock pheasants in and around my home around here every year. They're only around for just a short period of time. And guys, ringneck pheasants. They'll be out hunting.
That's what we've got. We have natural production here, but we will stock quite a few of them.
I tried to keep we had 2 of them, and I always throw feed around the house, and it started hanging around the 2 of them. Then one disappeared, and George next door, he's like, I see you got that pheasant still, and the snow's hitting the ground. I said, I can't believe he's made it this long with the fox around here. It's
amazing how easy they are to tame, but like you just said, they're very vulnerable. I mean, they just there's 20 things out there that'll kill one, you know.
I wouldn't want to be one of those guys. It's a short life.
Well, Valor here, you left a message saying, talking about the footage that supposedly is coming out. I'm assuming you're talking about the Jan McAvee stuff. I've heard nothing more of that. I don't expect anything to come of that. Gatewood and MK have kind of a big split. Gatewood is still saying they've got something coming out and in the works, and so we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep an eye and see what happens. I suspect it's not going to be anything. It's going to be a big old nothing burger. So we'll keep an eye on it. You never know what it could hold. We do have another person that jumped in the back, so let me bring them on. And it's Pat. Where are you? Oh, you're in the dark.
Nah, that's my jam. Yeah. I need one of those ring lights. This is just a computer light.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Gotta get all the gear.
Yeah, so I just need like a little miniature, like just a smaller ring light.
Yeah, I have a little big one over here. Where is it? Well, I have a couple of them, but this is another little one. Wait. I have like 2 of them, but one of them you can't. Just something like that would be cool for you.
Yes. I just discovered those things. Like I didn't even know those things existed until like a year ago. You know, I've been in the podcast world for like almost 9 years, and I'm like, what's a ring light? I don't. And it's like
when I started on Untold,
right, Pat?
Yeah.
Remember the clap on, clap off?
When I started doing the show on Untold, I have a ring light about, probably a foot round, 14 inches round. It's on a tripod, but the thing has like 10 different brightness levels, and then it has about 6 or 7 different white to soft light levels. Do you want it bright white or kind of an amber or whatever? And to me, it's off. I don't know why it. But Doug would always be like, "Oh, you got it too white. You need to turn it more amber." And I'm like, "Dude,
The
that ain't
producer
gonna
in
help
him.
me."
Yeah, he's got an eye for it.
Yeah, he can't help it.
Anyway, so
Where
let's
we
get
at?
started on the topic today. So I had Bigfoot in the box, and it was going to be centered around our own experience, expectations that might be limiting or us to the research. Now I know Trackway has been out and about, and on one of his podcasts, I think it was last night, he was talking about this whole concept of how we put Bigfoot in a box, that we put those expectations of what we think Bigfoot is in this nice little package for us to understand.
Mhm.
And that will change per person. Everybody's going to have their own idea about Bigfoot, how to approach it, what is to be considered. I thought he froze up. So that's where this kind of came up. I actually told Bill, "Hey, you just came up with my next show by kind of doing that." So we'll see if he can pop on if he's on his way home. I think he says he's still not home yet. So let's see.
I believe he had like an hour and a half or something. I think he said.
Oh, that was a long. Yeah, it's kind of long. Jen, compartmentalize the subject.
Sort of.
So let me just move. So in a discussion type, I did that twice. There were 4 main things that kind of attracted me to that topic: was the myth versus reality, the importance of open-mindedness, honesty, integrity, of course, and encouragement for the journey. So as we kind of weave through this, it's just an open discussion. Bigfoot has become larger than life figure, and part of it's myth, part of it's reality. And oftentimes we box Bigfoot into that fixed idea based on popular culture or films or wishful thinking. It's we change it. It's a little bit different for everybody, and we tend to assume that we know exactly what it should look like, how it should behave, and have we made that unrealistic expectation for searching for evidence? Some maybe, some not. But one thing that Trackway had kind of emphasized is, which I kind of thought about this before, but is how derogatory the whole term of woo has become for some people. And I never thought about that as being derogatory, saying woo or calling people on the woo side as being derogatory. But he does. And it's valid for him to think that, especially if maybe you've had experiences that you cannot explain.
Yeah. So that's become very tribal, by the way, just to kind of lay that out. The woo versus flesh and blood has become tribal, and the woo, many of the woo people, they love to refer to the flesh and blood people. They call they have nomenclature for them, apers, and so it's kind of a derogatory apers, the apers always think, and the apers this, and so they do that stuff too. And
and I've heard of that quite often, even with what's the Flash of Beauty guy, Tobe Johnson, has quite often said apers, versus this more spiritual. And I'm like, well, you can call yourself woo if you're going to call us apers. It was kind of something that it can go both ways. But I don't know what side I'm on. I know that I wholeheartedly believe it's a flesh and blood creature. I wholeheartedly cannot put one together with the other at this point, because that's where I stand.
It's neither. It's so like neither are right. I know, I know they look like primates, but that's what people describe. But Bigfoot's simply unexplained. Like, that is what Bigfoot is. The Bigfoot phenomena is unexplained. And so I say, undiscovered primates a great place to start. But
it's the most logical place to start. I mean, it would be a little far out there if we had something that was, alien or,
Right.
Yeah, it fits into our understanding of the world.
Yeah, we don't have anything else out there that's alien nature that we can prove.
Yeah, but I mean, even just saying throwing alien out there, I always say this: it's like you might as well just throw flying spaghetti monster, because none of that's understood. The unexplained is just that.
Yeah,
it's the unexplained, and people tend to fill that void of a lack of knowledge with their imaginations. And that's not proper. That's not how you think.
There is stuff happening out there that still needs some explaining if people are, if they're interested in that and they're not going to be biased about it and, label it Bigfoot. I mean, it could be anything, but there are things out there that are happening that are just, haven't been able to be explained yet.
Right. I think they will be. I think a lot of it has an explanation. I mean, I personally feel like I've been able to explain a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
That's cool.
Hey, Brent.
Hello. How's it going?
Welcome.
What's going on, Brent?
We have a full house tonight. That's great. Thanks, guys.
I like the background. Is that green screen or something you got set up there, Brent?
No, man, I don't ever use green screen.
Yeah, that looks like
that's just a light.
It looks like a light.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It's a light it's a golden hour light. It's just something I have. I was actually going to use it for the camp out. I forgot I had it.
It looks like a UFO's getting ready to beam him up right now.
Yep. It's beaming, yeah.
It is for the mother joke.
Being abducted for sure.
Yeah, they're taking me. They'll be like, screw this, man. Let's throw this guy back.
Brent was out there capturing Bigfoot on his camera. And I mean, I found like 6 or 7 Bigfoot in one of his pictures.
I know. Apparently, it's there's a Bigfoot setting that you can use on your camera that just reveals them all. Dang, man!
I didn't not have the heart to use red, but I did use blue. Okay.
Nice.
There you go.
Look at it. It's a whole family.
Whole family out there.
Tribe.
Dang.
Really?
I missed them.
Yeah.
Dang it.
You missed them.
It is amazing how our brains put together eyes, a nose, a mouth, and a
help
face
protect
out of
us.
everything. I was just staring at a hardwood floor the other day, and I wasn't even thinking anything to do with Sasquatch. I was just basically, I don't know, probably just daydreaming. And I'm looking at the floor, and I see what, eyes, nose, mouth, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then I look off to the side. Then I started thinking about, everything that's happening here in the Bigfoot world and the pareidolia. And I was just like, wow, I can make out a face right there. I can make out a face right over there. It's just amazing that our brain's wired to see that.
I mean, you guys think we're not too far.
That's the thing, right? We know our minds are made to see pareidolia, and yet we don't do anything about it. Well, the majority of the people don't go forward or move to the side or take alternative angle pictures. That they can't be bothered to take pictures before and after, or show pictures before and after,
or go
getting results
in there.
They're getting results, something they can post online to their friends and followers and stuff.
That's just it. They take the quick clip. That's the money shot, and that's it.
Right. Well,
Colorado
I'll
Bigfoot's
have
notorious for it.
Attention.
Pictures. For sure, I'll have some of those a little bit later. But so the big question is, and remember, I'm not on that alternative side of the fence. What if Bigfoot doesn't fit into the box we've created? Could it be something beyond what we're imagining?
Anything's possible until we get a type specimen. Until we get a type specimen, everything's pissing in the wind.
Right.
You can have
People
hypotheses and
saying, well, I've got scat and I've collected hair and I've got footprints and I've all this stuff, but
never goes anywhere.
There's never any kind of nothing to compare it to because we don't have that type specimen.
I think the foot tracks, I think that's becoming, that's starting to add some weight and starting to tip the scale. But again, without the type specimen, you can't go anywhere with it, but just keep putting it in the file box.
Well, is it time to start talking about killing one? I mean, for real,
We got to find them first. That's the whole problem. You've got all these hunters out there that maybe a fraction of a percent of them have an encounter or see a Bigfoot, but we've got more that are have said otherwise. I've been out there all my whole life. I've never seen anything. Why would I not have run into something?
I think what we need, what would help out a lot, and I don't know how in the heck we could ever make this happen, but if you take those situations where hunters are out in the woods, whether they know anything about Bigfoot or not, a lot of times what you hear is, I pulled my gun up, you could be scared to death. I was going to pull the trigger, but I couldn't because it just looked so human. Or if a person mistakenly shot one and killed it, it's on the ground, walks up and thinks it got it, I got a bear, gets up there and like, what the hell? And rolls that thing over and sees those hands and feet in the face. That person, is he going to say anything to anybody? I might have just killed a wild person that's been out in the woods for 20 years. Like, maybe never say anything. Could we get a state environmental conservationist or, some organization to make it known, maybe on the licenses or something, that if you mistakenly shoot what people are labeling as a Sasquatch, that here is your path. You contact DC, Department of Environmental Conservation, we'll come out. You're not going to be in any trouble, and it would be collected.
That can never happen.
Yeah,
I don't like you because you're trespassing on my land, and I blow you away. All I got to do is follow those rules, and I get a free pass.
I know,
and that's what's happening all over.
It would be
you can never do that.
Yeah.
It would be an omission. It would also be an omission from the federal government that Bigfoot exists, basically. So,
yeah.
I mean,
but if there was good, I totally get it. Yeah, I mean, it can't happen. It can't, but it would have been an avenue for some honest people out there.
There's no point.
Anybody who at this point has claimed they've shot one and is full of shit, they haven't shot one. It hasn't happened. I don't believe it has happened.
And that's weird.
And anybody who says they will shoot one hasn't had the opportunity to. And all the big game hunters that I know have never been in a position to where they could shoot one. And we're talking hundreds of them. I think you can offer a $10 million reward for somebody who shoots one. Nobody's taking your money. They can't get there.
That's
they can't get there. And I have
There's a lot
reasons
to unpack there,
to
actually.
believe that. But when we're talking about does it fit in the box that the narrative has created in the Bigfoot community, we have more data that we've uncovered in the last 50 years that shows there is woo to Bigfoot than there is flesh and blood, because we have shown nothing for it to fit in a flesh and blood box. And the only way you can explain what the narrative keeps bringing to us is if there's a supernatural aspect. There can't be that many of these specimens
don't know what that
all
is.
over the Southeast in these states that have millions and millions and millions of people for decades and not be proven that it's there. Can't happen. There's either a supernatural aspect to it, or we got a lot of people lying their asses off and embellishing and are completely
delusion. And those things exist, though. That's the thing. It's just to what percentage.
Yeah, I believe they exist. I believe I don't know if 10%. They exist at the point they existed 60, 50 years ago. I believe that they're on a serious decline if it's a flesh and blood creature. But I will say that the only way this works in the narrative is if there's a supernatural aspect. Because if it's flesh and blood, the narrative is wrong 99 out of 100 times then.
Pretty much. Yeah, there's no way that they're
just that we claim it exists.
There's no way that
geographically those numbers, the things it's doing, can't be.
No.
Let me throw this one out here at you. I was just thinking about this the other day. Okay, so be it that these things, people claim that, they're primarily nocturnal with the, the eye structure, deep setback, dark eyes. What if these creatures are getting underground? And what if they are going into the water to enter the areas underground? These would be areas that we just do not explore. And I say this because there is some overwhelming reason why we cannot film or discover this being, and that it just seems to pop up out of nowhere, unexpected, and then you can't track it and go find it.
But now let's just entertain that for a moment, okay? We're not talking about secret caves somewhere. We're talking about an idea of them being underground, okay? Not underground in this spot or that spot, but overall they're using that technique. I don't think we really grant how the recognition of how big the spelunking community is. These cave explorers,
it's huge.
Just recently, Wind Cave out in the Black Hills, we thought it was X big, like so many miles underground. Found out that it's like 60% bigger than what they thought it was. There's almost 100 miles of caves underground that they didn't know about. They went and explored them over the last year, and you know what? There's no Bigfoot there. There's no sign there's ever been Bigfoot there. And none of these cave explorers are going into cave systems all over the United States and saying, there's Bigfoot here, or here's the bones or signs of a Bigfoot. It's just not happening.
No.
There's not 1 ounce of data there to suggest that could be possible.
Zero.
Are they even looking?
And there should be data there.
Yes, they're in the caves. They would, if that was going on, they would run into them.
Right. Well, and how big are these caves?
Well, we have a lot of caves here, and I follow, like Jeff, various groups that do cave exploring and stuff, because there's tons here from mines and whatever. Yeah. And the common thing here with caves is they're just going to get flooded and oversaturated. So there's going to be a certain point that it's not going to be as viable. It's still possible, but
and non-breathable air and things like that. It's not just humans can't breathe most of those areas and the air that's in them. But any living thing could.
We're amazing at it. We're amazing at exploring and mapping caves.
Yeah. We're looking for a physical reason that just doesn't step off the ledge into the woo. Sure. And so I'm suggesting this because there's absolutely some reason. Either they're not out there. There's only 5 left in the whole North American continent, roaming all over the country and get seen every once in a blue moon. Or if there is a healthy population of them, then yeah, if you want to stay physical, then where the hell are they? Then they would have to be getting into the ground, or in obviously these, this, I'm not going to call it a hypothesis, this idea that they may be entering through the water and accessing secret caverns or areas that they know about. So like if you took New York State, for instance, let's just say there's only 10, 15 Sasquatch in all New York State. And let's say these things, be it that they're 6, 7, 8 feet tall, can cover 30, 40 miles in an evening like it's nothing, maybe 50, 60 miles, and then maybe they don't have a home territory. Maybe they just keep right on exploring and moving and snagging what they need and stay right on the move, but they know where these areas are. So if in the event it starts getting cold or they're in trouble, maybe they have these areas memorized. Now I want to, understand, I don't believe this. This isn't something that I feel super strong about. I'm just making a suggestion and trying to come up for a plausible reason why we find tracks out in areas, and there's a good chance there might be Sasquatch out there, but yet then, short of having a fleet of drones, like you said, Pat, with or all these investigators out there, we can't find them, can't get a video, can't get a picture, can't prove or find DNA, that we can't find what we need to prove it.
It all boils down to, if there's an undiscovered primate in North America, it doesn't matter what the situation is. They're not around people. I mean, they're in places where people aren't. That's why. That's really the only reason why, or they're not there at all.
Well, I believe that they are flesh and blood and they're there by default. That's where I was placed when I had my encounter, and I won't leave that beginning point until I see data that leads me somewhere else, and I haven't seen that data yet. But when you look at what the narrative claims, it doesn't work. It doesn't make sense for something that has to be elusive to survive. It doesn't make sense that it would populate in areas where that's almost impossible to do.
Without being known.
They would only be in the most remote areas of the Pacific Northwest and throughout central to western Canada and whatnot. These very remote areas.
Appalachians. I think they could do it in the Appalachians.
And here's the other thing. I also believe, and I've talked to some biologists about this. If you found a trackway of anything, caribou, a moose, a bear, and your goal was to take that trackway, even if there was 50 prints that you had, or 100 prints, and your goal was to extract DNA from it, you could almost 95% get that done.
Really?
Between the piss and the hair.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
There should be biological evidence everywhere.
If science wanted to find a trackway and say, we're going to extract DNA from this, that's not hard to do.
No. That's one of the biggest problems.
But all of a sudden, this species, it's impossible to do. Not any other species.
Yeah.
But how many trackways have we had that have been over 1,000 steps discovered? I mean,
0.
That you perceived to be Sasquatch.
None.
No, I mean like some of the ones.
Patty, the Patty film, I think there was around that number. Bossberg, I think there was around that number.
1,000? What?
Yeah, it was a large number. I can't remember the Sunnyside trackway. It's probably a rabbit or deer. But...
Well, didn't the Patterson trackway go all the way up into the tree line and up into that hillside? I mean, they had a long distance where they had tracks.
Mm-hmm.
They only cast they only cast 9 of them right there in the film site
from the riverbed,
which is probably the best option for prints, for like a defined print, because just because they can track it, because they could track it doesn't mean that it was a viable print option for them.
Okay.
But yeah,
And
I
I
mean,
think
so
Well,
there
and we
are
need
those
to-
ones,
we
but
need to
Bossbird's
understand
probably fake anyways.
we need to understand the context in which they are identifying something as a quote trackway. Let's look at. We saw something on that. They witnessed where it walked to. So when they
And they're made
go
for the
and try to
win.
find the disturbed areas of ground, they can find those disturbed areas of ground and retrace where it walked to. Could they take any one of those disturbed areas and say, what kind of animal was it? Maybe not. You understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
I could
Plus,
see Brent walk and leave tracks on a riverbed, and then he walks up through the trees and through the pine needles and everything else. I might be able to track where he went, but if I started there and said who left these tracks, I might not be able to tell it was a human. I can just tell the ground's
Yeah.
disturbed, and
Right.
I credit Brent for going there because I seen him go there. And I
Right.
think that's what's happening with the Patterson Gimlin thing. Not castable 1,000 prints, just disturbed areas
Well,
where they could tell where it had traveled through those areas.
the technology didn't exist back then to collect the biological evidence anyway, so it's kind of a moot
What's
point.
the one that Meldrum investigated where it was like on a dried up lake bed? Not dry, but they were great prints and they had traveled out. Maybe it wasn't Meldrum. So
Was it Meldrum when he was with his brother going out to ambush Paul Freeman to see his legitimacy, and Paul Freeman surprisingly just took him to a trackway that he found, which isn't that surprising because the same thing happened to Bob Titmus actually.
it was like
They
over
wrote-
200 tracks or something like that.
I don't know. It was one that I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't
don't
speak
know.
to it anymore because I don't have the details. But I
don't know
do
how
want
many
to say
Jeff
something
has found
about this,
in
though.
real time.
Yeah, well,
Everybody out there that's putting some effort into looking for these creatures out in the woods, I think it would be important that if you do sight a Sasquatch, to try to remember to identify that location, because there's a good chance that Sasquatch may drop some piss real early. Like if it sees you, it gets scared and takes off. That beginning point right there, I think you should spend a lot of time looking on the ground and investigating for urine.
well, most people get scared and just want to get the hell away from the
Right
area.
on. Right on.
And
This is my dream to
and,
find a trackway.
Yeah.
And this came from Leon Thompson when he said,
Yeah.
when he mentioned, if somebody could just find a trackway, a real valid trackway, that he'd go to the ends of the earth, or a person should go to the ends of the earth to find the DNA, which supports what you're saying, Jeff. You're right. If we could find a valid trackway, that should not be taken lightly, because that'd be the golden opportunity.
You need professionals for that. Number one, Bigfooters are not capable of doing that reliably.
I can do it.
No, you're not a professional scientist.
I might not be a professional scientist, but I'm pretty detail oriented.
Okay, man. I'm
can do it.
gonna stick to my opinion on that.
No, dude, I got some video, dude. He's legit. Like a scientist would be like, "Damn, son, that was thank you for the sample that I now see the chain of custody on was high quality." So no, I definitely back up Jonathan's.
That's fine. So like collecting one thing or another is. I'm talking about an actual team of scientists out in the woods collecting biological evidence.
Well, you draw in all of the
A citizen scientist who finds what he believes to be an actual trackway and finds an area where it looks like there is a scent, whether it's done for scent or marking territory, or whether it was just accidental a piss spot. But you start extracting dirt out of that area and collecting it right and putting it in the right container and get in the right chain of custody into somebody who can test the eDNA in that.
Perhaps, yes.
I don't think that's impossible. That's not.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
You'd have to know what you're doing.
I wouldn't take it upon myself to trample the trackway either.
And throw it in there.
I didn't say it was impossible, but it's the difference between, and I don't know if you were a detective in life or a
No, sir.
CSI agent. It's
No.
it's the difference between you solving a murder. Maybe you can,
Yeah.
or
No.
do we put it in the hands of the professional CSI and detectives, and they are the ones that we want to go solve that murder, not just somebody that kind of knows what they're doing or is
I
good
would
at
mark
doing
the
it.
area and take things off. I
here's
would
the
take
thing,
a
you're
knee and
not-
start thinking, and then I would make some phone calls before I moved into that site. But I would definitely make sure that I've
It
got
wouldn't
that
matter
site
if you
and leave
made
it
mistakes,
undisturbed.
Jonathan. It wouldn't matter if you made mistakes in the collection if you were the only one collecting it, because what's going to happen is when you have that sealed and you put it into the hands of scientists, they're going to start looking at it. You know what the first thing they're going to do? They're going to test your DNA. So they know what DNA to extract from any data results.
Throw away.
The same thing with our vector collection. They look at the 4 different species of mosquitoes and they identify what kind of mosquito this is, and they get the DNA signature for that, and they extract that from all results when you puree that mosquito up to get the blood sample out of it and say what host was this thing feeding on. As they look at those DNA signatures, they know where the mosquito is. Get rid of that. That's not what we're looking for. They would know what Jonathan Rafferty is. Get rid of that. If you touched it, if you drooled on it, they would get you out of that. They're just looking at what else is in that sample. So it wouldn't have to be a perfect collection as long as they knew who collected it, so they know who to discount.
Right on. Well, I know enough not to contaminate the site as well. And I wouldn't just take that task on all by myself. I mean, I would definitely, like I said, I would definitely take a knee. And from the point of origin where, I believe I first saw the creature, I would probably go to that area. But if there's a trackway and it's traveled out through the woods, I wouldn't just go trampling on out through there looking for hair hanging out of a tree. I've thought this over really well, and I would probably the first one I get a hold of would be Trackway, and I would need that team, Jen and Brent and Nikki and all of you guys. I would want everybody to put their head together to say, Jonathan, these are our suggestions. I know enough not to trample through it, and I've worked really damn hard, and I have the equipment to be able to collect something properly and store it. I know how to store it, and I think I could extract a sample properly.
That's part of the struggle, though, is that you are one of 1,000. You are special. You take the time, you know how to do it. You've collected what you know the technique, but you are one of not very many. I think we have a lot of posers out there and a lot of actors who say they are doing what you're doing, but they are not. You're
not typical. You're not typical in the Bigfoot world as far as being that kind of, discipline or whatever it is you do that Brent backs up and says, hey, he does it pretty well. Cool.
Well, no, I got video of it. It's just I got to get off my lazy ass to
still
get it posted.
It's I just always go back to the especially the Bigfoot activity areas, and there's there's just like that claim has exploded all over the place. That's the most popular thing now. Bigfoot activity. Those areas, the people that claim they know where Bigfoot lives and all that stuff, dude. It's like, dude, like you should have a team of scientists out there. There's biological evidence everywhere, and those guys could find it and collect it and analyze it. And if it's real, bam, you just opened a huge door. The ball just moved down the field. And that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, that's right. If they're only in like 400-acre type situation, we'd probably get somewhere, huh?
Or even 4 square miles. Like, they would know. These guys, the professionals would know.
Populations to say that we have, then where is it? Because there would be a shit ton of literally shit or something out there, you know.
Yeah, there'd be
If
tracks
we had
all over the place if there was these things everywhere.
Yeah, I think the population may have been at a certain place 50 years ago, but it is not there today. I think we're seriously looking at something.
And what Nikki's
Yeah.
touching on there, if you look at the decline of a population of any wild species declining in an area, okay, not talking overall, but let's say chronic waste disease affecting a white-tailed deer herd in a 100 square mile area. You go from 100 of them, or you go from, you know, probably 3,000 of them to a couple hundred are dead now. So now you got 2,500. The next year you've got 1,300. And now all of a sudden they're like, we are only going to put out so many hunting licenses, not what we used to. So some of them get taken, and everything naturally, this thing can get down to like a couple hundred left, like really quick. Okay. And when you get to those numbers, and I'm just going to say this, the state of New York and the population that's in New York, granted there's some remote areas there, okay? But you look at the number of people, and you go out in those remote areas during deer hunting season and tell me how unpopulated they are. Not very unpopulated, okay? These things would have to disappear off the face of the earth for 6 weeks at a time in order not to be seen.
Yeah.
There's plenty of room in the Adirondacks.
My point is if you had 100 of them, if you had 100 of them in New York,
I know
40
what you're
years
talking
ago,
about.
it could go from 100 to 5 or 100 to 10 or 100 to 20 in one generation, easily. And so I know it sounds crazy when people say, well, how could they have been in that big of numbers back in Patterson's days 60, 70 years ago, and all of a sudden where there's only not that much left? The narrative would make you believe that they must be growing leaps and bounds in order to meet the claims and the expectations that are out there now versus what was out there 50 years ago, right? I mean, everybody who goes camping who wants to see one sees one.
Yeah, and that's just not possible.
Trackboy just came into the show. Let's bring him on.
Hey.
What's up, man?
What's up, man?
So
where you at?
Oh,
yeah, I don't see
wait.
you.
Oh, hold on. That's
in the stars.
That's a user error there. Hold on. There we go. There you go.
So I think like to touch on population, like there's some very, very important realistic key points to discuss population. I think that there's no way that it could be claimed that they have a growing population as humanity encroaches in these 60 years, right? That their population has grown or gotten healthier somehow. I don't know that there's a viable population there at all. And so when you start looking at the rules and laws really of viable populations that we understand and know pretty well, I don't think there's any conclusion you could come to other than it is shrinking. And that's a real key, huge, important factor for numbers. And then on top of that, you throw in, right, just take the narrative, like Jeff's talking about earlier, from Florida to Pacific Northwest, from the Kiamichis to the Adirondacks, and even the Appalachian chain itself is traveling kind of place. But there's no way that a Bigfoot in Florida could ever interact with a Bigfoot in the Pacific. So if they're in these areas that are isolated, basically, there's no way to get from point A to point B to C or anywhere. They can't travel around the country.
I don't agree with that. I think there are definitely areas where they can't get through without crossing over heavily populated areas. But in what little bit of traveling I've done up and down the East Coast,
no way.
I mean, it wouldn't even be that hard to get in and around. I mean, at nighttime when you have your headlights on a back road, you go down 50 yards and something dark like that could just bolt across the road. You wouldn't know if it was what it was. You barely see it.
It's nothing but a sea of humanity from Florida to Maine. Nothing.
No
Nothing.
way.
Dude,
that's not
Did
even
you-
realistic.
all right. I'm not being
I mean,
realistic.
I spent a lot of time on the road. Like, I've drove up through there, and I know you have. There's no way,
Look,
Pat.
the Appalachian chain is doable. One of these things could move through the Appalachians.
You guys
That's
are thinking of this singularly in a can it be done mode, and you got to get your head past that, okay? And I'm going to lay this out for you. You're saying, could one of them exist in those remote areas somewhere between Florida and Maine and not be discovered? Sure. Could it do it every day for 50 years?
No.
Now let me ask you this. Could 1,000 of them do it every day for 50 years?
Definitely not.
1,000 of them?
Only,
I mean, we're
only in
getting
the
to this
Appalachians.
point to where when we're talking
in
about a
Florida.
population of them, not just making it through a night, not just walking 100 miles on the Appalachian Trail without being seen, but doing it
not walking on
every
the trail.
day for decades throughout its whole life
Well, that's what I meant.
in numbers of hundreds, and humans aren't running into them getting video or DNA evidence, and these government agencies that are out trying to count the bears in the swamps in Florida and count the moose in Maine and count the everything else aren't getting video and pictures of them. It just doesn't work.
No, and that's
It
exactly
does
what I
not
meant, by
work.
the way. Yeah,
But
I didn't
that's
mean
just
one
counting
day.
That's just counting. Like, I know we don't accept the blob squatch thing, and I know that the Bigfoot community, there's a strong portion of it that is, gets real excited with those photos. But if these, call them Sasquatch, if they have a higher intelligence and they are evaders, they would have grown to and learned how to evade us and when. And I think about this, like, that time between 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning and an hour or so before daylight is a good time to move. And when a real heavy storm comes in is a good time to move. Knowing to move when a heavy snow comes in and make your move is a good time to move.
We
I
see that
think
all the
there's
time up in northern
opportunity there
Minnesota.
for 'em. But I don't think that a heavy population or them being in one certain area for any length of time adds up.
I don't think that a light population. Look
Not
at what
even, yeah.
look at what Media Palace said in the comments. He said escaped convicts have gone long periods of time undetected by police. Okay, so let's say DB Cooper was in the woods. Could he
Yeah.
live his whole life and not be found? Sure, he could. Could 5,000 DB Coopers live for 5 decades across North America in the wilderness
And never be seen?
nobody ever finds them? Not possible.
Yeah, you're talking about individuals.
It doesn't work with the narrative. That's my point. It doesn't. These things have to be in the most remote areas, in areas that don't just get populated ever really in heavy numbers at any hunting season or anything else. And, people say, well, those swamps of Florida are remote. You're not factoring in if you're waist deep in water and here comes a government drone counting how many bears are on these dry areas. You can't get out of that. You can't escape that before you get caught on video. If you hear an airboat coming, how do you get out of sight? It's not like you're in a forest, okay?
Those things
at
are
some
loud.
point, you're gonna get at some point.
Dunk underwater.
One of these over the decades, one of the hundreds that has to be down there, is going to get photographed in a way that would blow you away. It just doesn't work.
Do you know how many Bigfoot that Meldrum thinks?
Maybe some of the pictures that we see, even though we discount them, I'm sorry, Pat, I just interrupted you.
Well, this is
maybe
important.
some of them are real, even though they're not good enough for us.
Yeah.
What if some of these things, some of these glimpses, some of these blob squatches, some of these things that have not been proven
what
to be a hoax.
what Jeff
What
is
if-
saying is
what
that
if
it would
that's
equate.
what we're looking for?
It
You know,
would.
not
It would what Jeff is saying is that it would equate to way more than that. Yeah, way more.
if the population was
Right. So
dense, but
Meldrew
not if the
What's
population
remote?
is very
Lost in-
minute.
Well, no. Okay, let's talk about that though, John. How, when you say dense, okay, I would say for a population to be able to sustain and be in place in, let's just say, the eastern third of the United States, okay, Pennsylvania to the ocean, Tennessee to the ocean, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, okay, those areas, that eastern third, for a population to be viable and sustain itself, we're talking about a minimum of maybe 1,000.
basically.
That's how many it would take in order to sustain. So over decades. And you put that many of them in that area with that many humans in that part of the country. I'm not talking about one day. I'm not even talking about 1 month. I'm talking about 1,000 pinpoints, moving, living, breathing, shitting, eating, sleeping, all through that area, trying to be elusive. And that, and literally 500,000 times that humans in that area. And we're not getting
times.
whatever.
Yeah,
However,
yeah.
I mean, an extraordinarily high amount of humans.
It's
that
about
area.
right.
And we're not mapping this over 5 decades. It just doesn't work for me. These things have to be in the most remote areas. And I don't mean the Appalachians where people are hiking. You see these guys that are out in the Appalachians hiking, they get off the main trails, and each day they'll pass 3 or 4 humans. Now, let's suppose you go one day and don't pass any humans, or you try to hide from them. And you might go 5 days. You might go 17 days. You're not going to go 5 decades. Ain't going to happen. And when you take that person and times it by 1,000, 1,000 of them aren't going to go 5 decades.
I mean,
somebody's going to have DNA or footage or something remarkable here.
How many of those
just doesn't
people,
make
not to
sense.
argue the point, because you have an excellent point, and I share that view with you as one.
Certainly, and I just to let you know, this isn't a personal thing.
No, I understand.
I love
do.
being able to sit here and have this conversation and not anybody get hurt or
I'm not taking it like that at all. I absolutely understand where you're coming from, and I think to myself, it's too bad that there wasn't a way to calculate how many of those thousands of people over the period of 10, 15 years in that scenario are even looking for such a creature that could just dip down and hold still while you walk right on by. I mean, when I had these little fox puppies out here, it was just absolutely amazing that I knew they were right there. And I used that for practice to just see how elusive an animal could be. And they're only like 10, 15 feet ahead of me. And they're just in some foliage, some understory. And like I could see Buddy right there. And then some of the other ones would come along and squat down and just start crawling right across the ground and just go about 8-10 inches and freeze. And I'm like looking, I'm like, my God, I can't even see that damn thing. How many of those people would have even noticed? I mean, they would notice a big footprint, or would they say anything about a great big turd in the woods sitting on the ground, or a clump of hair hanging out of a tree? Would the hiker just walk on by and be just like, oh, wow, somebody must have brought a horse up here. Oh, hey, hon, what kind of animal would have 7-8 inch long hair? They just, how many of them people can we rely on that would actually collect any good information?
Well,
again, we're talking about a much more profound run-in. We're not talking about minutia like that. We're talking about what would happen is they would basically be discovered. It would be a known animal if they're running around people that damn much in areas where you have 200 million freaking people. Okay.
The thing is it wouldn't take a live interaction discovery interaction in order to discover them. And I'm talking about animal sign here, which I've got an awful lot of experience with. There's a reason why mountain lions existed in New Hampshire and Vermont for a long time before the DNR there admitted they were there, because everybody kept saying they thought they were there, but they couldn't prove it. And then all of a sudden a picture came in, and then all of a sudden the DNR fessed up. The DNR fessed up. Here's the thing. You've got a mountain lion that top is 180-pound alpha male, moves very stealthily, and doesn't leave prints in much of anything, okay, the way they walk. It has to be really soft, perfect ground in order to, the area that they were in is pine needle covered frickin' mountainous territory, right? Yeah. They just weren't trackable. It took a live interaction or a camera trap to live interact with that in order to say, oops, proved they were here, okay? It wasn't somebody found a track and tracked it down, or found DNA and tested it and said, let's work this back to front and prove they're here. There was a specimen. Now, if you're going to be 800 pounds and 8.5 foot tall, you can't do what that mountain lion did. You can't. And when I'm in these remote areas and I'm watching animals like everything from badgers to up to wolves, coyotes, wolves, mountain lions, bobcats. These things move very stealthily, and they really don't leave much for tracks if they're not in the perfect substrate to leave them. Yeah. But you start talking an 1,800-pound moose, or a 1,200-pound brown bear, or a 600-pound black bear. They aren't quiet. I hear them. I see the signs where they were. I see the shit they tore up. I see the foot-long dumps they take. It's not like a wolf or a mountain lion or a bobcat or something like that. We're talking about something that if it's the size that it is,
it's going to leave
for that to be elusive and remain undiscovered. Yeah. It's a lot different than us saying, well, look how long we didn't think mountain lions existed. Mountain lions are very stealthy and very hard to track and detect. Yeah, unless you had snow, you won't follow one.
Yeah, that's why I like to go out in the snow so much. That's what I'm looking for, because I just, the snow, they just, how in the hell can they move through an area without leaving track in snow?
Yeah.
Because they're probably walking through snow where people aren't.
That's probably
where this open-mindedness. How far do you take your open-mindedness? You're following tracks and they disappear in front of you. What happens? How far do you take your you're scientifically rigorous in your investigations, but when does it take this turn? That how does an 800-pound animal disappear?
Everybody has a different threshold of real life experience in the woods. Some people are camping with their kids a lot. Some people are. I remember one time when I had a mountain lion walk out on our deck, I heard it creaking. And I knew that this thing, whatever was making that sound before I seen it was a mountain lion. I knew that it had to be over 100 pounds. You know why? Because I was out there the day before and my boys weighed about 40 or 50 pounds at the young. And when they walked on that cedar, it didn't creak. I knew that for something to be making that creaking sound, it had to have substantial weight to it.
Yeah. So with
popped off here.
With open-mindedness, so the thing about open-mindedness is you take the good with the bad. You take the bad with the good. To be truly open-minded, you're able to be curious enough to you're trying to get to the truth. So open-mindedness is misinterpreted in the Bigfoot world as, well, I believe this and I opinionate that and I and I love Bigfoot and I'm all about Bigfoot, and so I'm open-minded to the idea. It's like, no, it's like Bigfoot is at this point unexplained, and so you approach the Bigfoot subject with an open mind You're willing to take the bad with the good. And you have to be. You can't just have an emotional attachment to it. You're not going to be open-minded. You're always going to be biased, and you're always going to buy into the cherished belief that you have. So open-mindedness is not practiced in the Bigfoot world often at all. I've tried to preach it over the years. I have a whole video I love to play during my show sometimes about open-mindedness that's very articulate.
It's a delicate balance, because even some of the stronger minded people, you get caught up in the moment out there, and we're only human. We make mistakes, and there's, sometimes you let your mind wander. It's harder sometimes, you have to be able to reel yourself into reality and
you
not let yourself go out there.
It takes a lot of discipline to be open-minded when you're trying to explore something that's serious and not explained, and you have to have a good filter. And so skepticism, goes hand in hand with open-mindedness. You have to have the ability to be skeptical of yourself.
Well, what started working for me, the very first thing that started to enable me to make better decisions about what was coming out of my mouth, was just simply taking a damn knee and sitting on the information for some time and thinking it over, and get over the, quote unquote, emotional attachment to the situation in the moment. Let myself calm, give it a few days, think about what happened. Yes.
But have a good filter on that brain. Rubbish in, rubbish out. So you got to have a good filter, bro. Like, look, I've used open-mindedness. Open-mindedness doesn't, like, I've seen things disappear right in front of me. And in the Bigfoot world, open-mindedness means, you should accept the supernatural. You should be open-minded to the supernatural.
Right.
And instead, I was like, well, that's not open-mindedness. That's closed-mindedness. Just making an assumption. I want to investigate this and get to the truth. I have curiosity. Curiosity goes with open-mindedness. And even though I saw this thing disappear right in front of me, I just pressed on and thought and pressed on and investigated, and I explained it. I finally explained the disappearance of this object. It wasn't supernatural at all. It had a perfectly natural, realistic explanation that was a 1 in a million shot, but it was weird, right?
What happened?
I lost PD's Trex ball. I watched it like go behind a little partition and just disappear. I couldn't find it. It didn't go this way. It didn't go that way. It's not there. Like this little tiny area, and it had bounced up under a cabinet and went just right perfectly through a 1 in a million shot and all the way to the back of the cabinet. And I found it. I found that damn ball, and I watched it disappear right in front of my eyes. I saw dancing lights in the woods. It scared me to death. I was about to start shooting at them.
Well, that's not safe.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of scared, and it was the moon. Like I was getting ready to get in my truck and leave, and it was the moon coming up, shining through the canopy. And it just looked like these Christmas lights. And so shit like that, dude, like that's what open-mindedness isn't jumping to a conclusion. You have to be curious.
I think that some of the people that I can relate to the most and respect the most that has an interest in this subject are people that fall into the same category as almost all of us here on the screen and many of the people in the chat. They've at some point let themselves go beyond what was reasonable. They let their belief get the best of them, or their emotions get the best of them. And they at some point were able to step backwards and look at this and say, wait a minute here, time out. That, I don't have proof of that. I can't. And they reanalyze their experience and they say, I did not apply the proper scientific method to what happened to me there. And I've seen that with Brent, with the, what he's been very open when he got into the subject, how he felt that he got, let himself kind of get duped. I've seen it with Pat, with handprint on the back of the.
Oh my
your
God, that was
vehicle.
so stupid. Don't.
And I'm like,
I'm so
Pat, dude,
embarrassed
this
of that
is
one,
not.
dude.
And you were like, dude, I'll agree to disagree. And I'm like,
Dude,
whoa, man.
I was really buying into that.
I mean, we've all
Jeff's
found
right.
ourselves in that moment, right? And but we've had the ability to step back and apply reason and say, I'm going to be mature enough and apply the scientific method here and say, I did not have a reason to believe what I did in that moment. Okay? I was a victim of Bigfoot on the brain. I will not allow myself to do that anymore.
It was an exciting thought.
And those are the people that seem to exercise the best sound judgment in this, but also they remain open-minded. I look at this from the beginning and say, just because something's hasn't happened to me doesn't mean that it can't happen to you. So I'm not here to call somebody a liar. When people hear me say the things I say about where I think Bigfoot are and where I don't believe they are when it comes to populations, not saying they couldn't be there if there was a supernatural explanation, but for flesh and blood, it just doesn't seem to work. And when I exercise that, that's not me saying anybody's a liar. That's just me saying I have reasons to believe this, and rather than me be rhetorical about it, let me expand and tell you how I got to where I believe. And if we don't exist in the same spot, I'm fine with that. I still like you. I still respect you. I'm not going to make it ugly, just because we don't believe the same thing. But
yeah, but we know that some people do lie, so that element's there. We know that.
I think that's the one thing that this whole culture that we live in, everybody gets a medal, everybody gets a ribbon, right? We've grown up in that the last couple decades, it seems like now.
Yeah, especially in elementary school, I see that.
It's just not fair. It's not correct to say that person isn't right or that doesn't make sense. Don't question somebody. We can't do that. And I'm just thinking, we've kind of created it to where this community can exist as a whole, as a safe space to create whatever narrative you want and feel that you can't be approached on it. If that's what it's become,
that's what it's become.
I'd rather step back from it and stand outside the edge.
Yeah, me too.
Because it just doesn't work.
We're not going to penetrate into that world with discussions like this. No offense, Nikki. Like, I'm the same. We're all the same. We have small channels. We have small channels because we're willing to challenge the narrative.
We're reaching a specified niche of people who have come to the discovery that there's got to be more to the truth than what's being shown to me here. Let me search for this. I'm not just going to lay down and let you pile a narrative on top of me to where, the weight of it just, I have to succeed to. That doesn't work for.
And there's a way to penetrate it. We could get this out to the bigger Bigfoot audience, but it would take two high-profile Bigfooters, basically in a debate with like two of us or something like that. It would take something like that would be, like get 200,000 views, let's say, in the Bigfoot world. And that's where I think, like, I'd love to see all of that challenged in a setting like that with that kind of scenario. I'd love to see.
You bring that up, Pat, and man, I got to show you that, Brant, and I meant to show it to you when we were out in Washington, but I had thought about something along the lines of that. Like, how could you set up some sort of a reward system to the Bigfoot community as a whole, the newcomers coming in or people that have already been there? I mean, people, like you said, they want to get a trophy, they want to be a winner, they want a reward, they want to be seen for it. And they're starving for it so much. That's the first little blob they get, and they got it on the channel, they get a big reaction from it. They just got their high off that, and now they want to put more on that. But what if there was a team
People think.
assembled where it might take some time, you know, in the coin world? I'm a member of PCGS. I like to collect coins. There's a coin grading system, and within that coin grading system, there's some specialties. There's some individuals where you can get a, you know, a stamp on your capsule that it's been, you know,
An
looked at.
accreditation that
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's a lot of different levels with that. And I actually have wrote up, I have it, can't show it to you right now, but I wrote up, I started working on it. And I thought if, if quote unquote Bigfoot evidence was to be able to be submitted and graded, and not just by the flesh and blood, but by the woo, no bias whatsoever, because it gets graded and there's input put into it.
there would be no agreement on the threshold that would exist to establish the grade is the problem.
Yeah. And
you get called bully a lot.
And
yeah,
who would
there's
you
been
pick?
many attempts at trying
You have
to
use the legendary people,
peer review type situations going, and they have all failed miserably because everybody wants to be right. And
exactly.
That's
always what it comes down to.
Yeah.
That was just a thought. I mean, I'll try to sharpen it up and provide it where, you know, I'm not going to talk about it anymore because I think it's gibberish, but
yeah, I mean, look, you have your own personal relationship, which goes back to sort of where we started Bigfoot in a box, which I'm not saying you put Bigfoot in a box, but I think a lot of people project themselves onto Bigfoot. That's again, part of the people thing that I see. I'm not a professional psychologist, but I play one on TV. And
stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last
night. I did.
Close enough.
And so I see a lot of projection so I think that comes back to the box thing. But that's your personal thing. I'm kind of big picture guy, and Bigfoot's not all that personal to me, but I think the best thing that could be done, like in this format, would absolutely be, you know, again, 2 high profile Bigfooters. I'm thinking like Meldrum and Barackman, something like that, in a real, like, respectful, like, managed, moderated debate, you know, with 2 question mark. I mean, I'd love to do that. And I think, like, if that could be done properly and it was a big enough platform, shared around enough, that's a way to penetrate the other side, the message, the things we talk about here that, you know, might get 500 views or 1,000, whatever, same as my channel, and instead get 200,000 views. And then you're really talking to the Bigfoot world, and then you're penetrating more into sort of persuasion. It's all about persuasion.
Well, like a young kid looks up to a professional NFL player, he's a star quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, and this little kid's running around, you know, I'm Roger Starbuck. Yeah, I looked up to that guy. You know, I wanted to be like him, kind of thing.
Hell yeah.
If we could give him something like that, and you know, that's what it's along the lines of what you're saying.
We already did, and it poisoned the community. We gave everybody something like that when we created all these TV shows and put all the entertainment of Bigfoot, and everybody watched it.
Matt Moneymaker.
And then what did they do? If you're willing to be there to be entertained and you're not looking for the truth, you're willing to create stories that entertain. There's no threshold that you won't cross at that point.
Well, I think the audience as a whole, they attend for entertainment purposes only. To be honest with you,
it's only natural. I mean, bad news sells. That's why you watch more bad news on the news than good news.
I wanted to address what Glenn had said. He said, why is testifying in a court of law as a witness accepted, but not in testifying about what you have seen and encountered? I'll tell you the difference. If you're going to testify against me, Glenn,
it's out there.
I'm going to have my attorney
There's
tear you
lawyers.
apart.
Exactly. Lawyers.
I'm going to address your integrity. I'm going to uncover every time you've lied in your life. I'm going to uncover any emotional instability you have. If you've ever taken a medication for depression, I'm going to expose that in court, and I'm going to make everybody in that courtroom say, we can't trust this guy. But in this community, if you try to say, well, let's take a look at this guy's integrity, oh, we can't do that.
Yeah,
You
because
can't do that.
the problem, Jeff, and no offense to you, my friend, is that anecdote is gospel, not to be questioned.
Gospel.
Anecdote is gospel. It is. I mean, the religious overtones of the Bigfoot community are very much like
I believe.
obvious. Yes, they're very obvious, and I'm gonna even say like cult overtones, because it's somewhere. It's like it's dancing between both. It's in and out of both those worlds. You know, cults are kind of religious. So
it's just human nature. It's everywhere. Out of this subject.
I'm
in the
not
real
questioning your
world,
integrity, Glenn.
it's
Please don't think I was doing that.
you know,
I was
it's
just using it
everywhere.
as an example.
It's funny you say it's human nature, because the biggest thing that I've been saying lately over and over again is it's a people thing. Bigfoot, what is Bigfoot? It's a people thing. And I see it for what it is. And there's, again, this percentage that I can't explain. But
Yeah,
mostly it's a
this
people thing.
group, us right here, we maintain that we hold honesty and integrity at very high levels. Okay.
Amen.
Mhm.
You know,
I
that's
agree.
where we're at. And that's not what everybody else is at. You know, they
They
are
want to be
not like
entertained.
it's okay for you to say that you didn't find anything. What is so wrong with going out, doing due diligence and researching, and coming back and say, hey, you know, I had a great time, but I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. And that's okay. You know, Brent always jokes about saying, I'm the worst Bigfoot hunter,
Yeah.
you know.
Actually,
He
quite
is
serious about it.
number one.
That's why you
Number-
don't have 150,000 clicks every week, you know.
Dude, you got the number one slot, Brent. You are the absolute number one
Yes.
worst Bigfoot researcher.
And
ever exists.
I am
Yes.
the world leading expert in tree octopuses too. So, man, I'm covering both spectrums.
Yep.
The
Bottom and the top.
For
You
real.
have to
Love
do
it.
like that guy on Mogs' channel. Call yourself the tree octopus king.
Gonna have to.
So, Trackway, you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Was I in there
yes,
before?
sir.
Or what?
You were in like for 2 seconds and then you disappeared.
Yeah, it kicked out my internet again. Figure that one out.
Oh, yeah.
So
Are
I
you
just
finally
got
back home?
Are you home yet?
Yeah, we're literally just pulled into the drive. That?
Oh,
Yeah. Good.
What's that again?
I said you're home. Yes, safe at home now. Are you?
Yeah, I didn't fall out any tree stands. I'm back home, and Mrs. Trackway had to come down and join me, help me out today.
nice.
We scanned the woods for quite a long time today.
Yes.
But
Well, you made it
yeah,
sound like something happened today or something went on. Did you have something happen?
yeah,
today?
Yeah, you did.
well, I'm hunting. So, yeah, Jonathan's seen the videos,
Yeah.
and yeah, I should have one in the back of the truck, but
Yeah, I know that feeling.
sometimes things don't work out.
Wait. What are you saying?
yeah,
That you
just
saw
I was up in
today?
They're
What's
talking
that?
about like I think they're talking about hunting deer or something.
Yeah.
I don't care about deer. I only
I
care
was
about
hunting
Bigfoot.
deer.
Oh, is it deer?
Archery hunting or rifle hunting?
Yeah,
Yeah, both.
archery hunting.
Oh, okay.
So we only have
30 caliber crossbow.
Yeah, it's a little early for rifles.
Yeah,
in
I just
places.
out archery hunting.
Breaking
Well,
up.
yeah, Ohio, we
Really
only have a week of it and one weekend, but most of the stuff. Am I breaking
You're
up?
breaking up. Yeah,
Maybe
you're
closer to
breaking
the
up.
house.
Yeah.
There's
I
some
think he
big
was
deer down
saying
there
that
in
they only
Ohio.
have a week and a half of a rifle season. They have our archery season is like 2 months long. Our rifle season is like a week and a half. It's probably the same in most states. So
Okay. How about now?
Letting him get
Is that better?
trackway full of those tree octopus when tree hunting.
They're
A
out
little
there.
better. It's a little
Might
better.
have saw one today. Might not have.
Okay. How's that sound?
There you go.
That's better. Yeah.
Yeah, I was out. In Ohio, you can bow hunt basically the last week of September all the way into February,
yeah,
and then we only have a week, 1 week, and 1 weekend gun season, and then we have a muzzleloader. So yeah, I tried to harvest one today, and things kind of went bad. So it is what it is. But yeah, I wanted to, what I was talking about in that conversation the other night was, as far as the Bigfoot box, was whether you agree or not, um, that's up to you. But to me, there appears to be more than one phenomenon going on out there. And I think a lot of times when people just see something that might be not even related with the Bigfoot phenomenon, that because, they see something that's big, they automatically put it in the Bigfoot box. Because, if you see a shadow in the dark, there's no real connection between that shadow and Bigfoot, right? It's the exact same thing
there's
for
no
audio.
connection of that for most people who aren't in this community. But if anybody who's ever thought does Bigfoot exist or not, then all of a sudden they see the shadow. It
Right.
becomes a reality for them.
Right. And for me, what I was saying is, I think a lot of people, because we have a tendency to think in boxes, and think in a Bigfoot box, UAP box, chupacabra box, whatever box you want. That we want to put things that we experience possibly in the wrong box simply because of association. I have no idea, but that's what I meant by that. My experiences and my travels this year and last year and over the years, I think for me personally, I believe, there is possibly a flesh and blood creature out there, but I also believe there's some other phenomenon going on out there too that might be mistaken for each. I don't, that's the best way I can describe it.
Well, and there's also a
That's weird.
phenomena of people orchestrating and embellishing and creating something to cement
That's
a
the biggest
path
one of all
into
right there.
this.
That's
Absolutely.
mostly what
Because
it
what
is.
I'm looking at is out of 1,000 encounter stories, I'm looking at maybe 5 or 6 who maybe involved a true encounter with something that could not have been a known species. I think 2/3 of them are embellished BS lies, and I think 1/3 of them are misidentification.
Well, yeah, and I will tell you, I can
And I
count on
don't.
one. I can count on one hand the number of actual eyewitness um, tales that I truly believe.
Yeah.
One hand.
When it comes to misidentification, that's the interesting thing is the parameters of that. It's not that, somebody might just have a low threshold of personal experience that when they see something dark walk across the highway just after sundown 200 yards in front of their car for 1.4 seconds. They don't realize all the different things out in the woods that could have made that moment flash of identification look like a Bigfoot to you. Okay.
Absolutely.
They don't
Absolutely.
get that. They don't get a bear standing up on the side of the road, and they seen it stand up, and it goes to all fours and crosses in 3 steps, and it's gone. And
Yeah,
what they're
but
thinking is this thing was standing up and it crossed the road, right?
right.
And they saw it all in a 2-second pop, a snapshot of time in poor light from a distance.
And what they
Those
do
people are
is
suffering from not just misidentification, but a unrealistic ability to assess what naturally could plausibly explain what happened there. They just don't have the threshold of experience to understand that.
right.
But then
And
there's
I'm
other
saying,
ones who will create and embellish what they saw in order to fabricate it and be more entertaining and believable and whatnot.
yeah, and what I'm saying to those people that, your misidentification, like I said, they see something that's big or whatever out in the woods or crossing the highway or whatever, because we have Bigfoot and pop culture, they de facto to Bigfoot. So,
Yeah, but if they're Bigfooters, they're way more susceptible because they have
well,
Bigfoot on the brain.
and you're absolutely correct, because, we was talking about that on another show, on Nikki's last show. When you go out there, first off, you're going to go out looking for Bigfoot, right? So you pre-primed yourself. You go out there, you start doing calls, right? Well, I explained how in the hunting room, you do a deer call or whatever. Anything that responds, you automatically think it's a deer, although it's probably a squirrel or a coyote or a bobcat. But you see that across the spectrum, that when you're going out there and you're looking for something and you pre-prime yourself whenever you do any kind of call.
Well,
Yeah.
so here's the thing.
Correct.
What really
It's
fits
rampant
into
in
the
the Bigfoot world,
discussion
dude.
tonight is being able to appropriately approach research from a neutral perspective in order to fairly apply the scientific method. And we have to force ourselves into that neutral perspective. And here's why: because of pre-programmed expectation. That's human nature. If all 5 of us said, hey, let's go out to eat tonight, you know what's going to happen? All 5 of us are going out to eat, hoping and expecting we're going to get something good to eat. I'm looking forward to this, right? No, we're not all 5 going, man, this is going to suck. This food's going to suck. This isn't going to be any good, right? We're not programmed to expect that. We're programmed to be positive and want to achieve what we're set out to do. That's human nature. And
Ding,
because of
ding.
that,
Right.
people can't readjust themselves to the neutral reality it takes to research this properly.
That's where Bill is very, 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 very good. That's the engineer in him. I mean, I've worked with him now he is a great addition to this community, and he has that engineer's mindset to break things down. And from what I've seen, I think we're going to see some really good work from Trackway. Yeah, I think yeah.
Well, one of the things I do is, I'll show.
I have a hard time, Bill. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I have a hard time allowing myself to think anything woo. I had 2 things happen this summer that I haven't gone back and spent any more time with because it's not even important to me, and I really shouldn't be doing that because it all should be important to me.
Well,
but I'm looking for something, and that
let me
ain't what
clarify this, okay? When it comes to Bigfoot itself, right? I'm not, or
Sorry.
however you, yeah. What I'm trying to clarify is that, I believe there's a different phenomenon out there that's not associated with the Bigfoot phenomenon. So, until I see Bigfoot appear out of the ether in front of me, I'm not saying that's a part of it. I truly believe that there's something out there, something, this creature might be out there. I'm of suspicion that it is, just based off of experiences, Jeff Harding's, Joe Schneider's, some of the stuff that I experienced over the years. But for me, right? Yes, I will tell people I saw something hairy 300 yards away, and I saw something hairy, and that was in 2015. I saw something hairy in a water cut, and when I was in my teens. But I won't say it's Bigfoot because I can't say I didn't misidentify what was in the water cut, and I can't say that wasn't another hunter 300 yards away. It's 300 yards. But
yeah, it's a long ways away, man.
Yeah, exactly. And
You're not on top of it.
what I'm looking for, right? Because I'm not out there trying to capture the other phenomenon. It just so happens that, whether you want to, however you want to say it, it happens. I would much rather go out there and capture Bigfoot, but I have not been doing that. What I have been capturing, and I'll say it now because you'll see the swing and the miss, right? We did a huge swing, and it's a huge miss. Actually, I'm just going to hold up on that. Just
Okay.
Jonathan's well aware of it.
Yep.
But that's the thing. When I go out in the woods, I go out there, I gather what I gather, I bring back what I bring back, and I try not to get too wrapped in it and saying that it's got to be this, it's got to be that, because really it should be people much smarter than me, saying that. And the problem with it is that, as you were talking about trackways earlier on, and seeing the biologists and so forth doing an actual, I don't know if it's an acre by acre, how they actually work. I don't think it's possible that if you would find a trackway or a suspicious trackway to get a biology group in there fast enough before ground hydration starts taking away the tracks and the detail.
Yeah, within hours, the quality would just start diminishing. You'd have to set up bump lines, and how could you even
Maybe
protect
so.
from the elements?
Yeah.
You'd have
You get
Maybe
at the
so.
you hit dew level or dew point, the ground's gonna rehydrate, and you're probably gonna lose them tracks. That's why you always have when you go out in the woods, you don't see deer tracks from a week ago, 2 weeks ago, or whatever. You might see deer tracks from a couple days ago, depending upon the hydration quality and how much is actually how firm the ground is.
Sure, but so I would say to that, like, I literally saying, I don't care about tracks. I'm talking about areas where people claim that Sasquatch are, which implies that, I don't know, they live there, which sometimes is conveniently right by their favorite campsite they visit once a year. They live here. They live here.
Huh?
Yeah, they're in this area. This is my research area, and all that stuff implies that they're there a lot, which means the biological evidence would be a paradise.
Well, I mean, let's think about this here for a second, right? You're talking about in what estimations of this creature's body weight? 700 pounds, 800 pounds, something like that?
Sure, I'll go with that.
Okay, now let's talk about the deer herd and the food sources that this thing's has got to be eating, correct?
Yeah.
All right. How does that go unnoticed? Because when you're that big and have to take in that many calories, right?
Exactly. How does it go unnoticed? It kind of seems to go unnoticed. Single claim of an area.
You get an ODNR in there. Yeah. There's certain things that do disappear.
I didn't say anything about DNR.
I mean,
professionals.
Well, your professionals are ODNR.
No, I'm talking like
the DNR. No,
talking
that's
about
your wildlife biologist.
Yeah, sure, but I'm talking about like non-governmental wildlife biologists and anthropologists, and even you get CSI investigators. I mean, we're talking about bodily fluids here,
yeah,
and hair.
Yeah, that's kind of a goalpost move there. But what you really want is you want
showing up.
Absolutely not. There's no
But
goalpost move.
one of the things that you just touched on that we're not acknowledging is that when you talk about any forage, there are highlights in the abundance of that forage, and there are low points in the abundance of any forage. Okay,
Yep.
and we see wildlife respond to that. When the salmon run up the mouth of a river, up high into the river in the northern parts of this continent, what do you tend to see at that deep pool of where the rocks, right before the rocks? You got 50 bears standing there eating salmon, shitting all over the shoreline, drooling all over everything, and about 500 humans there photographing them.
and
Yeah.
what you're
So
what
when
you're
that
talking about.
salmon run is running and you've got guys chasing those, trying to catch them and fish for them and this and that, there's no Sasquatch standing there eating them.
No. I mean, what you're
But yet,
talking
if
about.
that forage base was at its height and most abundant, all the other wildlife that exists in this world that feed on salmon are there at the stream edge, including men, but Sasquatch isn't.
Right. What you're talking about is life cycle, right? Which is a big cycle, big piece of for fishermen, big piece for hunting. Jeff, you know the time of plenty versus the time of getting prepared.
I see it all the time with berry
Right.
growth and everything else in these mountainous areas. A couple of months where it's like, holy smokes, you can't walk through there without the risk of bear attack.
Right.
And other times here, you'd walk through there and not even worry about it.
Yeah, but
Like,
what if these Sasquatch have that mentality where they have enough brains to know I'm being hunted or I can't be seen? Like if you put the convict out there and he would have to figure out a way to get that salmon, and it sure wouldn't be during the day when all the bears are out there and the people. I would have to wait.
I would say that all wildlife are able to do that. I've seen archery
Right.
hunting. I
Mhm.
archery hunt 27
Yeah.
nights in a row, and I've got deer that start on nocturnal patterns because they start noticing.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
we see that with all wildlife.
Who's hunting Sasquatch?
well, we know,
It's
when
just
you're out.
human pressure. It's not hunting.
Max Powers.
Like, okay, so
Bigfoot
that's
hunter.
and that's
Max.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
Coolest
okay,
name.
so,
Coolest name.
Max
so then that
Mhm.
if that's the case, then that immediately like proves that they don't peek in people's windows. They don't come stomping around every Bigfooter's campfire, campsite, and like you see what I'm saying? It's like human pressure. Well,
everything
if you go,
active and
if
it's
you go in your
there's
if you go in your
nothing
backyard,
certain yet.
right, and build a fire in your backyard right now, yeah, there's gonna be no Sasquatch show up. You build a fire out in Cascades where Jonathan, Brent, and I were. That's a calling card from. I mean, you can see that fire all the way up from both ridges. You can see it from a distance. So,
it's
I mean,
only from an elevated position. Yes.
well, no, it doesn't have to be elevated. It can be at the ground level.
Smell the smoke.
Not through
Smoke.
not through the woods.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't see a campfire through flat like valley woods past like a couple hundred yards.
Yes, you can. You'll be able to see the light. You'll be able to see.
No.
I mean, you can't.
In forested area, if it's flat ground, you're not going to see further than a quarter mile.
Absolutely not. And
Not
that's
further than
a
a
quarter
quarter
mile that's way too far.
No, well,
I've been in dispersed camping areas, and I've had campfires 200 yards away from me. You cannot see them.
Okay, you know that loop at the high school that the kids run around? That's a quarter-mile loop.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, lay that out in a straight line. Lay that out in a straight line.
Hey, Trackway, I am laying that out in a straight line. I'm telling you, in level ground, not talking up on a ridge line somewhere, on level forested ground. You start going 100, I mean, I don't know how densely forested it would have to be, but I'm going to tell you, in most of the level forested areas that I go into, once you get 150, 250 yards in, I can't see you through the trees. You get 250, 300 yards in, You can light a fire and I might smell your smoke, but I will not see that fire burning because the amount of trees that are between me and that fire, it's level. I
You'd
don't
have to
have
be
a height
walking.
advantage.
Yeah,
You're
you'd have
also
to walk in not parallel, but against the grain. You might catch a glimpse here and there.
Yep.
But it would be very difficult unless you could see the hue of the
Okay,
fire in the treetops or something. But
let's just go with the
it
quarter
would
mile
be very
thing.
difficult.
It just let's just go with the quarter mile thing, and let's go back to population and everything we talked about before. How the hell did you just land your butt next to a quarter mile within a Sasquatch? Like, really?
Luck.
No, it's
Research.
not. It's not luck.
Research, going back to areas,
Yeah, they're out
fully
there.
investigating it, understanding where they
Like
might
hitting
be.
lottery.
Where they might be.
When I go into these,
I have a
Again,
question
Again, you're saying
I
they
have a
live
question.
there.
Nikki.
for the hunters out there.
Sure don't live
Jeff,
in the city.
Jonathan. Okay, you're talking about fire and them seeing this and blah blah blah, but the smell, isn't the smell more powerful than vision?
Nikki, what I was just going to get to is when I
What-
go into an area and I go in there on horseback and then I hike in another 4 or 5 miles in with one person with me and we set up tents and we start a fire, my first 12 hours in that area, I may not have been sensed by a Sasquatch that is within a couple miles of me. But I'm going to tell you, after 24 hours of being there with variable wind and running a campfire 2 nights in a row and being on ridge lines and moving around and the scent those horses are putting out, the scent trails that I'm leaving, if there's a Sasquatch within a mile or 2 of me, it's likely aware that I'm there in that area.
I agree
It
with
would
that.
be highly unlikely
Which is great,
that
right?
it could be
It-
oblivious to that.
Yep.
Don't you?
But
But that's kind of a good thing, though.
That's kind of assuming that they have extra sensory smell.
No,
beyond
I would
us.
say that just when I'm out there and there's another human camping a mile away from me, a mile away, an elevation difference, everything between the understanding how thermals rise up and down hillsides and mountains and variable winds in those areas and stuff. In a
It's whirling
24-hour period, I will smell something at some point and say, somebody had a fire here. I can smell that. Even if it's just for a moment.
Okay, fine. Let's just take a 4 square mile area.
But what you got to do too is you also got to talk about the terrain. That's why you always do terrain analysis.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about an old growth forest from the Pacific Northwest, that is a totally different set of variables than an old growth forest in Ohio.
Well, and that's why I talk all the time about people's reference for remote. You want to talk about being in a remote area in the Pacific Northwest or northern Idaho or Montana or Saskatchewan, in these areas that I guide hunters in, dude, you could freaking cut a finger off and start walking for help and you will die before you get help. It is that hard to get out of that remoteness. Whereas the remoteness in most of the areas in the extreme eastern United States, how often are you further than 10 miles by the crow flies from a frickin' convenience store or a highway?
It does happen. The Appalachians are much more
common,
remote
though.
than you think.
It's not common.
Jeff, the thing
all
that I found
opinions.
out,
It's all opinions, and until we get a type specimen, and if these things are
I
actually
don't.
torn
What I just
apart,
said isn't an opinion, Jonathan.
Yeah.
The people reference as remote down in the
Well, no,
southeast.
I don't mean
It
that.
isn't remote. It's rural, but it's
No,
not remote.
no, Jeff. I'm not arguing that point with you. I was daydreaming, and I was just thinking about this whole conversation, not that specific point,
Okay.
Jeff. I was just basically just saying, listen to all this stuff. And all this, it's that, or it could be in it. We're never going to be able to cross the T's or dot the I's. We need a type specimen.
I think
all the rest
All right, back to that.
when you come to the word remote, to be honest with you, the guy who really put it in perspective for me is actually Brent. Because Brent said something when he was out in British Columbia, which I thought it was a British Columbia or the Cascades, which I never really thought of before as far as you know, the term remote is, I forget how you put it, Brent.
Me too.
Yeah. The term remote is subjective to a person.
Oh yeah.
It is subjective.
Yeah.
So like where I was at tonight, or where I've been at, would I say that's really remote? Not really. I don't really think there's that many remote places in Ohio, to be honest with you. But what I do know from years of trail camming since 2010, right, is that there's only a handful of time when people are actually out in the woods, and that's during the mushroom season and during the hunting season. Other than that, you know, if people don't have a reason to be in the woods, they don't go unless they're going to a campground or a KOA. And they usually want their amenities like a swimming pool and a grocery store and mini golf. So
and that's starting to increase. I've done some studies over the last 10 years.
At all,
the number of kayaks sold 2 years ago versus 12 years ago. Number of mountain bikes sold 2 years ago versus 12 years ago. We are putting more and more people into the woods every year to a big amount.
All right, let me just let me throw this statistic at you, just so you understand. It is not that is not the majority. There's 60 to 80 million people that engage in hiking activities every single year.
Okay, now let's just stop right there. Hiking activities, where are they at? Are they on trail or off trail?
They're going into the same places that people are reporting.
Are they on trail or off trail?
They're on trail. They're walking trails.
Exactly.
It just, but here's where here's my major hang up here, Trackway.
Yeah, Bigfoot encounters happen. I mean, this is a contradiction.
Yeah. Here's my major problem here. We have this conversation, and it seems like, okay, I get that. But we need to ground ourselves with this question. Ohio, the area you're talking about, yeah, hunting season's busy, mushroom season's busy. The rest of you, not a lot of people are out there. Let me ask you this. Could a couple 800-pound bipedals exist there for 5 decades and not be found? No, they can't. I don't care what value you just built in your idea. The answer is effing no.
I agree.
No, I have to agree with you because I don't.
Can't happen.
The more and more I've, like I said, for 45 years, primitive weapons hunting in Ohio, hardcore. From that start of from that start of October to the end of January, I cannot say that I have ever seen a Bigfoot walk out, a hairy man walk out, go goony goo goo, and show me his big feet.
And so, what the point that I'm getting at is when I look at all the different areas that the narrative reports to us from, okay. When I look at Pennsylvania, New York, the Appalachians, Ohio, I'm not saying there's not remote areas there. But when we start asking, could 100, 200, 800-pound bipedals exist there for 5 decades without being discovered? That throws it into a different area. And when we start talking about the density and the hard to get to areas of the Pacific Northwest and northern Idaho and northern Montana and these areas, I'm going to tell you, when I get into those type of remote areas, I start looking at that a little differently. Could 800-pound bipedals exist out here without being detected? I think if they really, really applied the elusivity to it, they probably could. But there's no way in Pennsylvania and New York and those areas that this could happen. It just couldn't.
Well, you get into parts of
decades.
Parts of New York, parts of Pennsylvania are actually. When you think of New York, you think of New York City, but
no, don't pigeonhole me there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Western New York. I know how remote Western New York can get. Yeah. But I also know how many hunters are going out there on opening weekend and how many people are in them woods for a month out of a year. And unless there's a supernatural off switch to these things, can't go decades without being found.
most of
You
these
can't
guys
do
that
it.
hunt around here, they don't go any more than a mile up into the woods. So if I was a wild Sasquatch up in the woods and I had to get something to eat, I would just simply sneak down into town, grab a couple chickens, bowl of dog food, and whatever the hell I wanted, knowing damn well year after year after year
Well,
after year that all I got to do is drag ass up to the top of a mountain, get 3 mountains back, and whatever
Yeah.
one or two guys.
And now
I
a
always-
couple hundred
there,
of them, and
all I
now a
gotta
couple
do is
hundred
just
of them
feed
are
'em.
going to do that every year for 50 years and never
Because
get
when
found.
it like
But
when
I
somebody's
also-
coming up through the woods, I mean the crows start cawking, the blue jays start cawking. I can always tell when somebody's coming in the area. In the woods is like a neural network of alarming each other.
And when I start walking up to somebody's backyard into edge of a remote suburb in a chicken coop, the Ring doorbells start turning on, and the securities come on, and the dogs start barking, and the
2024. Yeah.
This is different, right? This cannot keep going and not be
Yeah.
captured, dude. It just can't.
And
The
again,
only,
the contradiction is rearing its ugly head, which
the only
is
thing that
the narrative says, hey, I could plot myself down within 4 square miles of Bigfoot. But, you know, when the hunters come in, it'd be so easy for them to elude.
Maybe the reason why we ain't seeing them is because we got to
Yeah.
work harder on figuring out how they're evading, or just accept the fact that they just ain't out there.
two,
Well,
two
they
things
walk
here.
away. They don't bang
Two
on
things
trees
real quick.
while you're camping.
How do you get
Okay.
tracks in somebody's backyard across some farm and all that happen when they have the doorbell and everything? Remember Kerry Arnold? Remember that I think it was one of his first interviews he did with somebody, Kerry Arnold, Bigfoot Odyssey. Remember that guy down south? He had them so they say, had the Bigfoot on the property, and they did get some video of like a shadow. All the cameras they had all set up down there, and they got glimpses of them coming out in the field and going back. Let's just work within the hypothesis that was not hoax.
It was. That guy was completely discredited. That's
so
the problem.
let's think about this too. You know, you were talking about hunters in the woods. What's the number one source of sightings in the fall?
I don't know, because I don't know what's like. I mean, how do you gauge that? It's
Most
not.
of it,
I don't think it's hunters in the woods. No.
most of it actually is hunters.
Yeah, but how do you quantify that? I mean, that's your opinion.
You want to
I don't
quantify?
think you could. Yeah, I don't
It's
think you can back
all
that up with
opinion.
data.
You can sit down with a spreadsheet, I guess.
Well, yeah.
But
I mean, do
you
you
go
have
to-
that?
I will say this: there is a way to draw a quantification, and that is, let's compare it to cars hitting wildlife and deer. The 2 months that happens the most is the same time in the fall, because these deer are in rut, they're moving around, they're running around, chasing each other, their guards are down, they're not thinking clearly, they're being pressured by hunters. We have more cars colliding with wildlife that time of year. But that would also tell you there's more cars driving by seeing them, the ones they don't run into, right? During those 2 months.
October when the leaves are
Nikki,
starting.
you look like you're ready to tell us something. You got
She's just letting it go.
Happy birthday, Patty
I
Film.
let
Did
you
you already do that?
took over the show about
57 years
15
old.
ago, so I just let it go and let it roll. But
Trackley,
guys-
I want to get your opinion on something though.
Sure.
If I
if you
was
guys
to
want to
try
hang
to,
and continue talking, that's fine. But I'm going to bring this show to a close. I think a lot of people want to go over. Some people want to go eat dinner. I don't know.
yes.
Jonathan is falling asleep over there,
I'm
so we
falling
need to
asleep. I think I have twice.
we need to bring it to a close. Thank you guys for being here so much. All of you guys, thanks for showing up, guys. Don't forget to hit that like button. Hit it now. Hit it before you leave. And don't forget to subscribe. Share this around with everybody.
Have fun,
I love y'all.
everyone.
See you guys in the next